Good morning, guys. I'm Aldrin Salcedo from BS Psychology 3A, and today I'm going to present to you the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So now, let's talk about who is Abraham Maslow. If you don't know, Abraham Maslow was an American psychologist who proposed or who developed a hierarchy of needs to explain human motivation. His theory suggested that people have a number of basic needs that must be met before people move up the hierarchy to pursue more social, emotional, and self-actualizing needs. Abraham Maslow is also best known for hierarchy of needs, founder of humanistic psychology, peak experiences, and self-actualization. So now, let's talk about Maslow's early life. Abraham Maslow was born on April 1908 in Brooklyn, New York, where Maslow grew up the first of the 7 children to his Jewish parents, who immigrated from Russia. Maslow described his early childhood as unhappy and lonely because he spent too much of his time in the library, immersed in books. Maslow studied law at City College of New York, or the CCNY. After developing an interest in psychology, he switched to the University of Wisconsin and found a mentor in psychologist, Harry Harlow, who served as his doctoral advisor. Maslow earned all of 3 of his degrees in psychology, a bachelor's, master's, and doctorate, from the University of Wisconsin. Maslow also proposed a hierarchy of 5 innate needs that activate and direct human behavior. They are the psychological needs, safety needs, belongingness and love, esteem, and last, the self-actualization needs. These needs, Maslow described as an instinctoid, by which he meant that they have a hereditary component. So now let's move on to the hierarchy of needs. As I presented here in the presentation, the hierarchy of needs is presented through a pyramid, which contains 5 levels: the physiological needs, the security, love and belonging, esteem, and the self-actualization. So now let's talk about the lowest part of the pyramid, which is the physiological needs. As you can see here, physiological needs contains food, water, breathing, sex, excretion, and homeostasis. So, what does physiological needs means? For me, physiological needs are probably fairly apparent. This includes the things that are vital to our survival. For example, our clothing and shelter. Also, Maslow included here the sexual reproduction in this level of hierarchy of needs, since it is essential to the survival and propagation of the species. The second level of hierarchy of needs is the security and safety. So as we move up to this second level of Maslow's needs, is the requirements of the needs start to become a bit more complex. At this level, the needs for security and safety is become primary. Of course, people want to control and order in their lives. So these needs for safety and security contributes largely to the behavior at this level. Some of the basic needs of security and safety is the financial security, health and wellness, and what else? And injury. Um, so now let's move on to the third level of hierarchy of needs, which is the love and belonging. For me, love and belonging, or the social needs, includes such thing as love, acceptance, and belonging. And at this level, the need for emotional behavior, the need for emotional relationship drives human behavior. And some of the things that satisfy these needs includes the family, romantic attachments, social groups, friends, and community groups. And for me, as a people, in order to avoid these problems such as loneliness, depression, and anxiety, it is important for us to feel loved and accepted by other people. Personal relationships with friends, family, and lovers plays an important role, as does involvement with other social groups, such as religious groups, sports team, and other group activities. So now, let's move on to the third level of needs. Fourth level of needs, which is the STEAM needs. What does STEAM needs means? This is the level of hierarchy that needs for appreciation and respect when, of course, when at the bottom, the three levels of needs has been satisfied, the STEAM needs begin to play a more prominent role in motivating behavior. At this point, it becomes increasingly important to gain respect and appreciation of others. Yes, people have to accomplish things and have the effort to be recognized. In addition to for the feelings of accomplishment and prestige, STEAM needs includes such thing as self-esteem and personal worth. And of course, people need to sense that they are valued and by others and feel that they are making a contribution to the world. Yes. And people who are able to satisfy the STEAM needs by achieving a good self-esteem and the recognition of others that tends to feel confident in their abilities. And those people who lack esteem and respect for others, who can develop feelings of inferiority. Together, the esteem and the social levels makes up what is known as a psychological needs of hierarchy. And now, we're heading to the final level of hierarchy of needs, which is the self-actualization needs. What the self-actualization needs? Um, for me, at this very peak of Maslow hierarchy of needs, is the self-actualization. As I read a quote that what a man can be, he must be. This explains, referring to the need of people have to achieve their full potential as a human beings. And yes, according to Maslow, the definition of self-actualization is the use of full exploitation of talents and capabilities or potentialities, and etc. And such people seem to be fulfilling themselves and to be doing the best that they can, that they are capable of doing. And they are people who have developed or are developing to the full stature of which they are. That's self-actualization needs. And now, in connection to the self-actualization needs is, of course, the conditions for achieving self-actualization. There are 4 conditions according to Maslow. The first one is that we must be free of constraints imposed by society and by ourselves. What does this mean for me? For me, this basically means that we should stop measuring yourself or ourselves against others. Why? Because most of us have the tendency to measure our self-worth by comparing our accomplishments and abilities to those people around us. If you want to see how you're doing, the easiest way is to see how you measure up with your counterparts. It is the surest way to demonstrate how far along are you on the path to achieving your success. The second condition for achieving self-actualization is that we must not be distracted by the lower other needs. What does this mean for me? For me, this means that we should learn to accept yourself holistically. Why? Because it's so easy to become dissatisfied with who you are and what you have accomplished. Oftentimes, when you look in the mirror, it actually serves to increase the negativity with which you think about yourself. You cannot fall into the trap. In order to self-actualize, you must accept your whole self, your strengths and weaknesses, and you must embrace them all. You cannot, what do you mean by that? You cannot downplay your weaknesses or exaggerate your strengths if you hope to get anywhere in life. If progress is to be made, you must operate first from the truth. The third condition for achieving self-actualization is that we must be secure in our self-image in our relationship with other people, and we must be able to love and be loved in return. What does this mean? For me, this means basically that we should understand that you are in control. Why? No matter how much influence an external factor might have on the people around you, the self-actualized remain unaffected. This is because They know exactly who they are and can therefore always adapt quickly. Um, and also because they do not lie to themselves about their own identities, strengths, and weaknesses. They have an immediate and what do you call this? And clear picture of the adjustments they need to make to render the external factor irrelevant. They should understand that the power of your possess in terms of your outlook is absolutely astonishing. And if you are realistic, honest, and above all, authentic, there is nothing you can achieve. Um, the last conditions for achieving self-actualization is that we must have a realistic knowledge of our strengths and weaknesses, virtues and vices. This basically means that we shouldn't stop growing. Why? Because those who self-actualize understand the journey is never over. To self-actualize requires self-awareness. And self-awareness requires an understanding that there is no such thing as a finished product. There is no such thing as a perfection, no such thing as an end game. To be self-actualized means to understand that you must never stop growing as a person and learning as a professional. To achieve self-actualization, when you conquer one thing, you must move on to the next. Self-actualization for me does not require or does not need any tricks or tools. For you, to reach this level, you only need to accept who you are and then take the necessary steps to becoming the best version of you that you can be. Once you reach your 100% comfortability with who you are, who you surrounded yourself with, and what you're destined to do on this earth, you may begin to your journey towards self-actualization. As a final point here, see who you are. When you have seen it, try to adopt an attitude that you're not afraid to go against with the grain. Stop adapting to the society and start being you. And the empowerment that results will astonish you. Thank you.
Maslow proposed a second set of entities, which is the cognitive needs. In the hierarchy of needs then one, outlined by Abraham Maslow, the want to comprehend takes priority over the desire to understand. Both must be satisfied at least in part before a desire comprehend may arise. How the cognitive needs affect personality. The urge to understand is a natural component of a child's growth. Failure to meet one's cognitive demands is risky and prevents one's personality from fully developing and functioning. If we don't fulfill the desire to be aware of and comprehend, we won't be able to evolve into self-actualizers. Study of self-actualizers. Self-actualizers, according to Maslow theory, have a different core motivation than others. For self-actualizers, Maslow proposed a new sort of motivation termed meta-motivation. Maslow described the motivation of people who are not self-actualizers as a condition of demotivation or deficiency. Key motivation entails pursuing a specific goal in order to compensate for a personal deficit. Feeling potential. Self-actualizers, on the other hand, are preoccupied with realizing their full potential as well as knowing and comprehending their surroundings. Their purpose is to improve their lives by increasing tension so that they may participate in a range of engaging and demanding activities. Meta-needs. Meta-needs are a state of being such a goodness, uniqueness, and perfection rather than a specific goal object. Failure to meet meta-needs is harmful, resulting in a type of meta-pathology. Meta-pathology prevents self-actualizers from expressing and fulfilling their potential. They may feel hopeless and sad as a result of their inability to define the source of their emotions or establish a goal that would help them feel better. These are some characteristics of self-actualizers. Maslow didn't come across many self-actualizers and estimated that they make 1% or less of the population. Self-actualizers, according to Maslow's studies, appear to be nearly flawless. They do, however, have human weak spots. Compared to someone who is not self-actualizing, such events are rare and less serious.
Our next topic is still under the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which is the assessment in Maslow theory. Actually, Maslow work on self-actualization did not begin as a research or personality assessment. Ruth Benedict and Max Wertheimer was admired by Maslow. Na-curious si Maslow kung bakit magaling yung dalawa at kakaiba sila kumpara sa ibang tao. So, to satisfy his own curiosity, nag-investigate siya. For much observation, he concluded that the two was shared certain personalities that different to average person. Maslow attempted to assess those qualities in other person. His first research subjects were college students, but he found only 1 out of 300 he could describe as self-actualizing. Pero naisip niya na yung mga qualities na napoposes ni Benedict at saka ni Wertheimer ay hindi niya makikita sa mga bata. His next step was to study people who were middle-aged and older. So, nag-isip-isip siya kung paano niya makikita yung mga characteristics na napoposes ng dalawa sa ibang tao. But he only found less than 1% of the population na capable na ma-meet yung criteria for self-actualization. Finally, he included several dozen whom he designated as certain or highly probable cases, partial cases, or potential cases. After how many study he conducted, nakahanap na siya ng mga taong pwedeng i-assess, including Albert Einstein and Eleanor Roosevelt, wife of the president and prominent social activist. Maslow used a variety of techniques to assess their personalities. For historical figures, he worked with biographical materials, while in analyzing written records for similarities in personal characteristics. For the living subject that relied on interviews, free association, and projective tests. He found that many of these people were self-conscious when asked questions, so often he was forced to study them indirectly, although he did not explain how it was done. Next, the Personal Orientation Inventory, or the POI, a self-report questionnaire consisting of 150 pairs of statements, and it was developed by psychologist Everett Shostrom to measure self-actualization. It Itong POI ay ginagamit para ma-measures yung level of self-actualization. Each is consists of two contrasting statements that addressing same issue. The subject must select the statement they believe applies to them. Also, yung POI ay ginagamit sa counseling therapy or pre-post therapy kasi nakakatulong yun sa isang tao para makita yung level of positive mental health. These are some examples of the POI. I do what others expect of me, and I feel free to not do what others expect of me. The POI is scored 2 major scales and 10 subscale, which is the time competence, measures the degree to which we live in the presence. In the other major scale is the inner directedness, assess how much we depend on ourselves rather than on the other judgments and values. So the next slide is all about the research on Maslow theory. You know that Maslow did not use correlational or experimental methods in his research or the study. So the critics have charged that Maslow methods for studying self-actualizers were not rigorous or controlled. Ibig sabihin, sinasabi na hindi accurate yung ginawa ni Maslow na research. Sumang-ayon si Maslow doon sa statement na yon kasi alam niyang hindi na-meet yung ginawa niyang investigation sa requirement ng scientific research. After that, he believed that because self-actualization could not be studied by accepted scientific procedures, the alternative was to wait until appropriate techniques were developed or not study the issue at all. Pero Maslow was too impatient to postpone his study kasi naniniwala siya na yung kanyang ginagawang research ay malaki ang may tutulong sa humanity. Because of what happened, he wrote that he did not have enough time to perform careful experiments, and he quote, "They take too long in view of the years I have left and the extent of what I want to do." So, he referred to his program as consisting of pilot studies only. Convinced that his results were valid, he expected other researchers eventually confirm his theory. Maslow also believed that to support and justify his conclusion, which he was convinced were correct, he somehow needed to collect less data than did other theories. Now, let's talk about the hierarchy of needs. In support of Maslow theory, a study of male and female college students found that satisfaction of the needs for safety, belongingness, and esteem was negatively related to neuroticism and depression. This research also showed that esteem needs were stronger than belongingness needs. Sa pag-aaral doon sa mga sagot mula sa subjects, napag-alaman na yung kanilang concern ay pataas. It means that from physiological needs to self-actualization, and it was greatest interest because it was not easy to satisfy. The last topic is reflection in Maslow theory. Criticisms of Maslow theory center on his research methods and lack of experimentally generated supporting data. It means yung mga binigay ni Maslow na mga data ay hindi siya masasabing kinuha sa bilang ng population kasi 'di ba pili lang siya, parang most of them mga kakilala lang ni Maslow. The other one is critics also charge that the ways in which Maslow amassed information about his original self-actualizing subjects are inconsistent and vague. Ba't kaya inconsistent and vague? Kasi hindi naman dinescribe ni Maslow kung paano niya nakuha yung result. Also, he didn't describe what led him to choose those, to identify those people na inassess niya as self-actualizing. The third one is, for his subject, Maslow selected people he admired according to his own personal criteria for self-actualization. He admitted that it is difficult to describe accurately the self-actualizer. Other criticisms have been directed at Maslow's definitions of various concepts such as meta-needs, metapology, peak experiences, and self-actualization. His use of these terms could be inconsistent and ambiguous. All the defense of Maslow against his criticisms was not supported by the laboratory research. And that will be our discussion about the Maslow hierarchy of needs.